again, Spider-Man. Nice to see you too again. So what happened? It was a haircut experiment gone terribly wrong. I see. So you lost a lot of hair and you gained a little weight since last time we talked. Yeah, and you no longer have a lower body. Interesting. Ah! I don't have a penis anymore! Damn it! So where were we? The Amazing Spider-Man. First of all, let me just apologize for sweating a lot. It's just, it's very, very hot here. We've just had the hottest day this year. It's been over 40 degrees Celsius, which is kind of like over 100 of your degrees. 100 Fahrenheit degrees, I guess. And comparing it to the heat wave in the US, I suppose it's not that impressive, but for us and for me especially, it's a lot. So again, sorry for, sweating and being disgusting and shit. The Amazing Spider-Man. I think I can sum up my opinion about this movie by just saying that, the first Spider-Man, the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man was a movie about a guy becoming a superhero. Whereas with The Amazing Spider-Man, I think it's a movie about a guy that gets superpowers. I think we lost a lot of that epic feeling of a true superhero movie in the sense that just the way that Mark Webb handled this material and losing the amazing soundtrack that we had for the free Sam Raimi movies, it doesn't really feel very epic, this movie. It feels a lot smaller, a lot more contained. But the problem with the way Mark Webb handled this material is that the movie seems to forget a lot of things. It has a kind of amnesia. For instance, the movie starts and Peter Parker is all about finding stuff about his parents, and then he kind of forgets about that. At some point, he becomes obsessed with finding his uncle's killer, and then he kind of forgets about that. And I think a perfect example of this is the transition of going from a normal, everyday teenager to a guy with superpowers. In the first Spider-Man movie, this transition was pretty long and extensive, and it was slow developing, and it gave us a lot of chances for humor. Pretty much most of the humor in the first Spider-Man movie was in Peter Parker's transition. In The Amazing Spider-Man, that transition happens like that. In the sense that 1 second, Peter Parker is just a normal, everyday teenager that's probably a little too smart for his own good, and then in the next second, he is a guy with superpowers, with his entire set of Spider-Man superpowers. And yes, he does get to build his own web shooters, but honestly, he has such a shitty attitude about it that I can't even enjoy that. In the sense that when he first starts to use them, and he's trapping a criminal with his web shooter thingies, and the criminal's like, oh, what is this thing? And Peter Parker's like, this is the thing that I built in my cave from scraps. Seriously, Peter Parker? You have to be such a douchebag about the fact that you built your own web shooters? That's what they're supposed to do. I will say that something that they improved upon is the way the Spider-Man moves and the representation of his superpowers in terms of agility and movement. His physicality I loved. So everything that had to do with Spider-Man swinging through the city, I liked. When it comes to Andrew Garfield's performance, I think that Andrew Garfield put a lot of himself in this role. Much more than Tobey Maguire. Because let's be honest, with Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, you kind of had a blank slate. It was a simplistic representation, but it was good in a way because you could kind of build on that and superimpose on that your own interpretation of Spider-Man. With Andrew Garfield, he literally puts his soul out there for you to consume, and there were parts in this movie where I was going like, that is so not what Spider-Man would say or do or act like, but that is entirely what Andrew Garfield would say or do or act like. So really, with this particular performance, if you don't like the kind of guy that Andrew Garfield is, you're not going to like his Peter Parker / Spider-Man. So the question is not how much did Andrew Garfield become Spider-Man, but rather how much did Spider-Man become like Andrew Garfield or a guy like Andrew Garfield over the years. And since I liked the guy, I liked his Spider-Man. I think he had his douchebaggy moments, and I think he shook his head a lot and just some of his mannerisms were a little annoying at times, but overall I think he's such a likable guy. I've liked him for so long that it is impossible for me to say that, no, I didn't like Spider-Man. Emma Stone, I think, was adorable in this. I think she did exactly what she was supposed to do. I also like the guy who played Flash Thompson for a reason. I think they made Flash Thompson a lot less of a jerk than they could have made him. With the guy playing the Lizard, and unfortunately his name escapes me right now, but I think it's Rafe Spall, if I'm not mistaken. If I am, then I'm sorry. At first I didn't really like his performance. I thought he was doing a piss poor job. But then at some point it registered to me that, you know, his whole act about the lights are on but nobody's home. You know, that whole thing about acting very reserved and stern, he was acting reptile-like while in his human form, so to speak. And once that clicked, I can kind of appreciate the idea behind the performance. I just don't think the performance itself was very interesting to watch. And also there's a problem that, you know, basically the Lizard in this movie is doing the exact same thing that all the villains have been doing in the Spider-Man movies, which is to go crazy, become obsessed with something, and not really being, you know, evil geniusy as he is evil crazy. But I did like the way that the movie foreshadowed the importance of Norman Osborn, because you never actually see Norman Osborn, but a lot of people talk about him. So Norman Osborn managed to be a presence in the movie without actually being in the movie, and I think that was very well handled. So overall, I like The Amazing Spider-Man. I just think it had such a short attention span. It lacks a lot of the epic feeling that the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies had. But if there was one thing that really pissed me off about the ending, spoiler alert! Thank you, Spider-Man, for doing something useful for a change. Okay, so at the end, Gwen Stacy's dad is dying, and with his last dying breath, he's like, Peter, go on, defend the city, you know, be a champion, be the hero it needs but doesn't deserve, or some other crap. But don't date my daughter. And then Peter's like, cool, you know, say hi to my uncle. And then the funeral happens and Peter Parker's not there, and then Gwen goes to his place, and Gwen is like, why weren't you there? I needed you to be there. And then Peter's like, I can't do this anymore. I can't see you anymore. And then right at the end, Peter goes up to Gwen and he's like, you know, the best kinds of promises are the ones that you don't keep. Okay, first of all, what kind of lying ass bullshit is that? Okay, there are only two kinds of promises. There's the ones that you keep and the ones that you don't. There's no like a degree of quality to promises other than the ones that you keep and the ones that you don't. And if you don't keep a promise, you should. You know, that's what a promise is for. You should keep it. And if you don't keep it, then it's a lie. And then after Peter lays this, you know, lying, cheating ass wisdom on her, Gwen Stacy smiles. Bitch, it was your father's dying wish that you don't date this guy. And what do? You smile. I swear, like, kids these days, for fuck's sake,